learned a shocking truth about my fellow humans. Are you ready for a shocking truth, Brad?
Oh, I don't know whether I can stand any more shocking truths about my about my fellow humans. Holy moly.
Good point. So, so when Brad Guigar goes to his local YMCA and jumps into a pool, you hold your nose, you hold your nostrils on either side of your nose, you give a little pinch so that no water goes up your nose, Brad.
You don't want that water going up your nose.
Especially not YMCA water. We all know where that's been.
No.
So Brad goes to his local Y, jumps in, and I'm assuming, by the way, you wear your normal banana hammock, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you got it, flaunt it.
Oh my God, I accidentally just pictured you in a banana hammock, and that was a bad move. That was a bad move on my part. So here's the thing that I learned, and I'm kind of shocked and horrified that to learn this. There is apparently, Brad, a percentage of the human race that does not need to hold their nose underwater. They don't need to pinch their nose on either side to keep water from going in. There is apparently a musculature on a certain percentage of the human race where they can close off their nose from the inside. Did you know this?
Wow, no, I've never heard about this.
Like way in the back, if they sort of lift their tongue and like suck back in, they can sort of whoop their little nostrils, I guess.
That's amazing.
I had no idea. I do not have this skill set. Do you have that? I'm assuming based on your reaction, you don't have this skill set.
No, I'm sitting here. You can see my nose going back and forth on the screen. I can't do anything like
trying
that.
to figure this out. Yeah, because I was trying to figure out the mechanics of it. I was like, I don't even know that I understand how it would work. I guess it's sort of a flapdoodle or something in the back of some people's nasal passages.
I had my flapdoodle removed a long time ago.
Well, that's why you can wear the banana hammock so successfully. But I feel about this the way I feel when I found out that like half of humanity has one type of earwax and the other half of humanity has a different types of earwax. And I'm like, what? No one told me about this. How is this the case? You think you walk through the world and you know what it is to be a human being, and there's people that are like, no, I have synesthesia. I can smell colors, or I can, and you're like, that's experiencing the world in a totally different way. I did not know that there was a chunk of humanity that could close off their nose muscular/mechanically in a way that did not involve their hand. I had no idea.
It's the funny thing about that is that it's kind of fun to tell somebody that. It's the same way you can say some people can wiggle their ears and some people can't.
Yes.
And then you tell them that, and then for the next 15 minutes you watch their face contort this way and that as they're trying to figure out if they've got the special knack to wiggle their ears or close their nose or hunch their flapdoodle or whatever it is that they're doing.
Right.
And I can't do any of that stuff. I barely have control over the regular stuff that happens with my face.
There's also, I'll hold my hand up to the camera. There's people that can do the Vulcan hand move where you separate out at the middle. Okay, now try to do this. Go transition from the Vulcan hand move where the two middle fingers are together and then the outer two fingers are not together. Some people can't make that transition. So see how you go boop and then boop and then boop? Try to do that back. So you go from Vulcan hand move to two fingers together, two outer fingers separated. Some people can't do one or both of those in terms of finger control. Some people can't separate out the pinky or their pinky toe. Like it's like.
I wonder what that means, though. Like evolutionarily speaking, what that means.
I think sometimes evolution just goes down blind alleys and like, let's try this. And like, well, that seemed to work and it didn't impact. It didn't impact people's ability to bone and have more children. So yeah, we'll keep that. That's. And speaking of people's ability or inability to bone and have children, hello everybody and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Guigar, the creator of Evil Inc. and the author of the Webcomics Handbook.
And with my most least artful transition ever, probably, I'm his friend Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. And gang, we have a topic that is incredibly near and dear to our heart this week. And it's probably going to eat up the first big chunk of the show because it means so much to Brad and I. And just to give you some background, this show will be airing about 3 to 4 weeks after we are taping.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be somewhat old news. But here's the thing, gang. It's evergreen, because what we're going to be talking about is why it is so critically important that you own and control your own career. And we're springboarding this conversation off of recent news. Am I right, Brad?
Yeah, because, and the reason we wanted to bring it back around today was that a lot of times when we talk about owning and controlling your own work, we're talking specifically about the pitfalls involved with signing with a print publisher.
Yes.
And recently there's been a news story about an online publisher that has caused an awful lot of problems for the people that signed with that online publisher. Now, we're not going to name names because it's not important to the conversation. We're not litigating facts. But what we do want to talk about in this next conversation is 5 lessons that comic artists and cartoonists can learn from what's going on with this online publisher that also parallels other print publishers and other online publishers. This is like Dave said, it's a sadly evergreen story.
Yes.
These things happen over and over. And that's why one of the most often repeated phrases that you're going to hear if you listen to this podcast for any length of time is to own and control your own work.
And what do we mean when we say that? So to give you the broad scope picture, one of the things that Brad touches especially strongly on again and again on the show is we have 100+ years of comics history behind us now.
Right.
That shows the pitfalls and frankly, the career ruination for the folks that did not own and control their own career. They signed away the rights to this. They handed this over to a publisher. They joined up with this web cooperative that took control of this or that. They went with this distributor that did this or that to their career. And then 5 years later, they kind of hands up go, who could have seen this coming? We had no historical, parallel for how this could have happened. And Brad and I are over there literally pulling our hair out and screaming at one another on the phone like we were yesterday about how there is 100+ years of history of this. And damn it, learn from this. Please learn from this. Yeah. This is not the first time this has happened. It will happen again, and it will happen again and again because cartoonists don't think they have the ability or the wherewithal or the sense of savvy to control their own business. Yeah. Whereas Brad and I are over here arguing that is the key to long-term success in a career in comics.
And also we have to readjust what it means to be a cartoonist in today's world. And in fact, I would argue this applies to all of the creative professions. All creative professionals
that's a good
have
point.
to rethink what it means because traditionally, quote unquote, the concept of success was you sign a contract and now the money starts rolling in and you just start cashing checks. And I'll argue until I'm blue in the face that it never really was that way, except for a couple of little standout moments in time for different creative pursuits. But it was never really that way. And it certainly isn't today. Today, to be a creative professional, I think, and I feel very strongly about this, you have to be a business person. You have to be prepared to be a business person. You have to be prepared to learn about merchandising and about promotion and about all those other things. And it always makes me so mad when I hear about, and let's talk about the case of a writer, for example, a novelist, and they want to sign with a publisher. You know, and I know the first thing that publisher is going to look at isn't necessarily the manuscript, although I'm sure they glance at that. First thing they're going to look at is this prospective novelist's social media reach. How many followers do they have on this platform, on that platform? That tells you that the publisher understands much better than you do that you're expected to be a business person. Except in this case, they're going to take the chunk of pie that goes to that, goes to paying that part of the business. They're going to take it for themselves and tell you to promote and count on you being naive and gullible and foolish enough to accept that premise.
And the proof in the pudding there is, have you ever asked yourself, hey, why is it that so many social media influencers, and you can describe however you want to describe that, people with 1 million to 5 million followers, why do they always seem to get publishing deals with 1 million, with small to medium-sized publishers? It's because the heavy lifting has been done for the publisher. They just need to tap into the pre-existing audience. It doesn't need to be a good book. They'll get a ghostwriter in to write it. And so you see what's happening there in terms of the machinations of the publishing industry when you see these good size social media influencers get a book published with the small or medium sized publisher.
And then ask yourself the next question. How come there's never a second book?
Oh, Brad.
Think about that. Think about that question just for a minute.
Brad. Also, the look on Brad's face as he said that was just chef's kiss. That's why it made me laugh. He had sort of lean in with the head tilty, like, ask why there's never a second book.
Think about that. Anytime you accept another entity, anytime you give that other entity the power to make business decisions for your work, then you are accepting the risk.
Yes.
Think about that. Think about that. So many of us think that signing the contract means that we're not accepting the risk. No, you still have the risk. You have the same amount of risk you had before. What you're giving up is agency.
Yes.
You're giving up the ability to make those decisions, to be involved in that. You're ceding that power to somebody else, but you still have all of the risk. And go back to that person we were talking about couple episodes ago, and when we were talking about Heated Rivals on HBO Max, and the romance author who had written the books, and this book, this series was set to go on HBO Max. They knew it was coming. They had good indications it was going to be a hit. No, the publisher hadn't printed books, and now that moment is come and gone. That author has missed an opportunity to become a New York Times bestseller and to get the royalties involved with that. That was her risk that she assumed when she signed that contract and gave all that power to the other, to the publisher, right? Same risk. The only difference is she had no way. I'd be willing to bet that she was on the phone with her publisher saying, hey, this series is coming up. Are you sure we're prepared for this? Are you sure you don't want to print some books? I'd be very surprised if that conversation didn't happen.
Right.
But she didn't have the power to make it happen.
And just to put a topper on this, I see, because a lot of people talk about their career goals, and they're like, well, Brad and Dave, yeah, she may not have had the book sales, but surely she made money on the show. I'm going to tell you, because I know from the other side of things how much authors get paid, especially when their show is optioned for Canadian television, by the way, which is what Heated Rivalries was. I mean, she might have made $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 tops on that option as the author for that one. And $30,000, by the way, is tops in terms of like Canadian television original contract option. Yeah. So her chance to make money was in the publishing itself. So the fact that they screwed the pooch, because the reason why we keep hitting on this is that every young cartoonist assumes, well, surely they know more than I do. Surely they'll solve the problems better than I will. No, not necessarily. Sometimes it's other 25-year-olds that have been hired to run that marketing department, or other 25-year-olds that have been hired to do this. Like, because there's no money in publishing, some of those marketing or some of those groups are paper thin in terms of staffing, and it's a bunch of other 25-year-olds that have been hired to do it. So, like, what experience do you think you're going to get when you're going with a publisher? You're not getting a 65-year-old necessarily that's been there for 40 years and knows all the tricks. Sometimes you're getting someone who's your age and just is making $32,000 a year, and they're the sole member of the marketing team handling 40 books. I'm being quite sincere about that.
Yeah, and without harping on Heated Rivals too much, but your point brought this up, because I did watch the series. After the title comes up on the screen, it wipes off, and then a big explosion of type comes up and tells you the name of the person that adapted the novel for TV, which, by the way, deserves all the credit, because he did a really good job of adapting this. He deserves lots of credit, but nowhere is the author's name. You've got to wait, if my recollection is right, you got to wait way deep in the credits, I think, at the end, before you say the actual name of the woman that wrote the book that all of this was based on. Didn't even come up until the end.
Well, because, and again, not to harp on the idea of TV and film too much, but because everybody pins a lot of their hopes on that eventually happening, I will tell you what happens when you option your book for or your comic for TV or film. It's no longer yours in that medium. It becomes someone else's. The showrunners, the executive producers, the studio that makes it, the studio that distributes it, it becomes theirs, not yours. They have paid you your $5,000 option and they say, go away, we don't need you anymore. Here's the showrunner that'll be doing the scripts. Now, in rare occasions, they'll bring in the original creator to help doctor some scripts or punch up things or talk about the thing. But for the most part, it's going to be their names on the credit because they're the ones getting the paycheck, not you. It's what I'm saying is continue to own and control your work, because even the hoped for end goal of, I'll option it for TV or film, it's not the promised land that you think it is. You know what I mean? So anyway, this is Brad's lesson number 1. Delegating business decisions equals delegating power. And I think that's a great one for the first lesson, Brad.
It's not just about rights ownerships. It's about who controls the cash flow, who controls the timelines, all of that stuff. Getting help is fine. Support service is fine. But surrendering decision-making authority is lost, right? And that's what Dave and I have been talking about all the way building up to this. You've surrendered the ability to make decisions on your work. And I get it. On one side, it seems, well, that's what I want. I don't, and Dave, you and I have talked with people like this. They're like, I don't want to know how to make merchandise.
Right.
I don't want to know.
It's literally fingers in the ear. La, 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 la. I don't want to know how to do this.
And that's what comes back to my first point. In fact, I've told the story before. I was doing a comic convention panel sitting next to a guy that said, hey, I don't want to know about business. I just want to make comics. And I got really angry at him because there were kids in the room who might have maybe thought that he was worthy of emulating in some way. And I said, you can't say that. Learning business is being a cartoonist today. You cannot say, I don't want to learn about business. You can't say, I don't want to, and by the way, here's another one we hear all the time. I'm not good at promotion. I just want to make comics. Well, then listen, if you're not good at promotion, you're not going to get to the point that you probably want to be in comics, because promotion is part of comics now. Running a business is part of comics now. Merchandising is part of comics. Crowdfunding is part of comics. Doing your taxes is it's all part of comics. Is no longer writing and drawing and submitting that to have people take a look at it. And again, I'd argue that it never was. I think there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. But today, it's undeniable. If you want to be a comic artist, if you want to be a cartoonist, you have to learn about this other stuff. Or or you can, like Dave said, put fingers in your ears and then wake up a few years later going, what the hell just happened? Where's my check? How come no checks are coming? How come, this thing is happening? How come I did, this crowdfunding project and I'm not seeing any money from it? And the merchandise is going undistributed and it's got my name on it, but I've got no control. Right. You accepted that risk when you signed with the publisher. And by God, we've got to really harp on that, because we see it happen over and over and over again. And it's 100 years that it's been like this. It didn't change in the last 20. It's been 100 years of this.
And Brad and I have now been doing comics 26 years or so, 28 years, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
And we have seen this exact cycle, even in small comics publishing, happen maybe 9 times, 10 times, where the cycle is this. Hey, new publishers forming, and they're offering these deals. And look, Brad, they're handling the marketing. They're handling the sales. They'll warehouse my book. They'll set up my website for me. Oh, well, I don't have to do anything but cartoon. This is exactly what I wanted. Yeah. And Brad and I off to the side are like, don't do it. Don't do it. First couple years go okay, because sometimes it's a shell game. Sometimes it's a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul. Sometimes it's kind of a Bernie Madoff situation where they're literally taking from the new book that's doing well to pay off the older books. And so you survive survive for a couple of years that way, and then things start to fall through the cracks, and the emails get weirder from the publisher, and people start to leak out online on social media, hey, things aren't going so well. And then it all blows up, and we hear about all the stories after the fact, and then all these young cartoonists go, wow, this has never happened before. Imagine this. Look at this. It all fell apart. And Brad and I are like, we have seen this exact GD cycle 9 times already, just in our 26-year career. And then you go back and you're like, what happened to the creator of Wolverine? What happened to the creator of Superman? What happened to the creator of this or that? They all get screwed because they didn't own and control their comic. And I get passionate about it because it is not new. It is a pattern that repeats again and again and again. So before I get repetitive myself, I'm going to have Brad jump us into lesson number 2 from his list.
Well, and this goes to this particular news item, but also it's something to keep in mind in general. And this is also something you can take to your day job. And that is lesson number 2, transparency begins with creator to creator communication. In other words, what finally started to happen with this particular online publisher is the creators started talking to each other, the different creators who were signed to the same publisher. And they started sharing real, honest, genuine information with each other. How much are you getting paid for this book?
Right.
How much am I getting paid? Did this project get greenlit? Did that project? And by the way, at your day job, your boss absolutely, I guarantee you, does not want to have a conversation with the person in the cubicle next to you that starts along the lines of, hey, how much are you making per hour? But once you start to have those conversations, you get some real eye openers to what's going on in that office. Same thing with a publisher. Your first line of defense, if you've signed with a publisher, whether it's an online publisher or a print publisher, your first line of defense is to find the other people who are signed and start having real, honest, private, out of the sight of the publisher.
Yes.
Honest, private conversations about the nuts and bolts of your business with this publisher, because then you'll start to see maybe one is being favored over another, or more likely you'll find that you all have the similar gripes. You're getting emails that don't get returned. You're getting checks that aren't getting sent. You're getting any number of things that are problematic. But your first line of defense in this situation is open and honest transparency with the other creators.
And because you might not yet be with a publisher or a web publisher or anything, the parallel that Brad made to employment in general is perfect, because ask yourself at every company you've ever worked for, do they welcome employees talking to one another about their payroll? You bet your bippy they don't, because they don't want you talking about that. And so they have all these sort of policies like, oh, we don't talk about that sort of thing. But it's such an American version of capitalism, because you talk to European friends and they're like, oh yeah, we absolutely share what we're getting paid with each other. And then we take it to the union, or we do this or that. Culturally, it's just funny to see what people will talk about and what they won't. Like, Americans are afraid to talk salary because talking money is sort of oddly anathema for people that believe in capitalism.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. It's culturally interesting how that got trickled down into our day-to-day living. But Brad's right. The way that you fight this is transparency between creators about publishers, about web hosts, about web publishing, about people that are handling your Kickstarter for you. Are the checks coming? Are the checks complete? Because sometimes that's a big problem, is that you get half checks or third checks for what you were promised. Is the communication forthcoming? All that stuff is critical for whether these people are worth signing up with. And that only gets solved as creators share with one another. And I'll be honest, sometimes it's embarrassing because you realize you've been taken. So it's embarrassing to tell other creators, look, this happened to me. I signed this contract and I got screwed. So, but you are doing a favor to one another. And so even if it's only for 1 or 2 people, share what you know in terms of people you've done business with, because word does get out and word helps other cartoonists. And only in that rising tide do we all lift our boats in terms of being able to share best practices and who's screwing us as we go through our careers.
Absolutely. Lesson number 2 was your first line of defense is clear communication. Here's lesson number 3. Your best line of defense very often is not signing that freaking contract in the first place. Don't sign it. Don't do it. We're telling you. This more often than not, it's a bad deal for you.
Yeah.
And very often, and you'll see this happen an awful lot too, a cartoon is signed too early, right? They get them just at that time when they're about to break, just at that time when things start to happen, and they're feeling a little juice. And of course, a certain type of publisher might be the first one to tune into that and play into that ego that comes with early success and stuff like that, and get you to sign. I'm telling you, all of the stuff that we're talking about, you can do yourself, and you should learn to do yourself, even down to hosting. You should learn to host your own comic. And the earlier you start, the better, because the stakes are low, right? You should be figuring out how to secure hosting, how to pay for that every month. It should, especially for a beginner, it should not cost that much. And it's an investment in your future. Learn how to install a content management system. Dave and I will always recommend WordPress because of all of the benefits that are along with it in terms of ready-made plugins and so forth. But you should be ready to learn all that stuff and to take your time and build that and to gain that knowledge along the way. Because everything that you learn in putting that together is going to make you a better cartoonist, because this is one of the required elements of being a cartoonist.
Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics. So to get back to what Brad's lesson was here, your best defense is often not signing. So you're handed a contract by a publisher that you personally are excited for. It doesn't matter whether they're a print publisher, doesn't matter whether they're an online publisher, a web distributor, whatever you want to have. They're excited to work with you. You're excited to work with them. So as Brad said, your best defense is often not signing. So let me ask you this. Have you read the contract? Okay, then don't sign.
Right.
Did you read the contract, but there were whole clauses that you didn't understand? Then don't sign. Did you spend $250 to $500 and hired a lawyer to read the contract for you? Okay, but then did the lawyer have clauses that they had concerns about? Don't sign.
Yes.
Did the lawyer explain what the clauses were, but you didn't understand what the problem was? Then don't sign.
Right.
You know what I mean? Did you take the concerns of the lawyer back to the publisher and they didn't make the changes? Then don't sign. You get where I'm going with this. You cannot. This is the stage to not go in with blinders, because what's costing you $250 to $500 to have the lawyer review is going to save you $10,000, $40,000, $100,000, $100,000 plus down the line when the publisher screws you at some point. And I'm just saying from history, by hook or by crook, by either malevolence or ignorance, they will screw you at some point. And so you want to make sure that you understand going in, how will they screw you? How would it potentially happen? What would be your recompense if they do screw you? How can you try to put it right if they do screw you? You want your lawyer to explain to you all the situations that the contract lays out and what the fixes are for those things when they go wrong. And if you don't understand them, and if they're not fixable, then don't sign the contract.
Yeah. And it comes down to this. This is what Dave and I would recommend for somebody whose goal is to become a full-time cartoonist, right? Somebody who wants to do this at the pro level. Here's what we want you to do. We want you to learn how to do your own hosting. We want you eventually, not in your first year or so, but down the road, we want you to learn to do your own crowdfunding. We want you to learn to do your own fulfillment, your own merchandising. We want you to do a book run, right? We want you to fulfill that book run. We want you to learn how to put that book up on Amazon and different places, and distributing your ebook through places like drivethroughcomics.com. We want you to learn all of those things and to do them on your own until literally the time comes when you and maybe you and an assistant can't take on all of that extra work. And here I always, and poor Raina, she gets dragged into this, but I call it the Raina Telgemeier rule, because she's kind of like my view of somebody at the very top of this pyramid. And that is, if Raina wanted to do a Kickstarter independently, the book distribution would be in the millions, and it would be impossible for even with a couple of employees to do all of this. That means that Raina needs to, at that point, sign with a publisher or a distributor or some kind of business partner. And that brings us to lesson number 4. Experience changes the power dynamic. When you come in and decide that you are going to sign with a publisher or that some kind of business entity that's going to be brought in and do part of the things that you've been doing on your own for, let's say, 10, 20 years, at that point, you have a completely different power dynamic. You know what it means to fulfill a book. You know what it means to handle a merchandising experience. You know how money comes in and goes out on crowdfunding. And when you sit down at that table and say, okay, I've got the ability to sell, to put a book out that'll sell 1 million copies. Now you sit down with a publisher who wants to work with you, completely different conversation. And you are in the driver's seat. You've got to, it's a whole different thing. Experience changes the power dynamic.
It does change the power dynamic, and it changes what you can ask for, how you can contractualize it, the clauses you can include and not include, the pay rates. I'm just speaking, Brad, about the 5 to 15 truly huge cartoonists that exist in the market, and they do exist. We don't need to name them. I kind of wish for them. I've said it to some of them. I wish they would do sort of a Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter, where they would say to their next publisher, nope, this one you don't get. I'm going to do it myself. I mean, and listen, Brandon very wisely built up his company and people and relationships over decades for his career. So you remember his $20 million Kickstarter that he did for the 4-book series? And he wisely had them pre-written, as we always say, get it done first before you go to Kickstart. He had built up trust with his readership. He knew how to do levels of merchandising. So it would be harder for some of the cartoonists that you and I could immediately think of when we say, gosh, I wish they would do a Kickstarter, but I know the money that they would make would be so much better. But in their mind, having never done self-publishing, or at least not since their 20s, it's a big swing, and I get that. I understand that it's easier just to accept the checks at that point. But I hope that they're using the weight of their success to get better negotiated contracts at this point. So anyway, to Brad's main point, experience does change the power dynamic, but you do not have that power dynamic at the beginning of your career. You will be often handed a contract and told to accept it, you know?
Right. Yeah. And if you've been running your own business for a certain amount of time, you're going to sit down at that table in a completely different negotiating stance.
Yes.
All of which leads us to number 5 on our lessons to be learned. And that is, self-publishing is hard, and that's okay. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about this aspect of it, because you hear us all the time saying own and control and self-publish and run your business. And the other side of that, and I can tell you from doing comics consultations and stuff, sometimes that learning process is difficult. And sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes I did a whole, I think, pro tips talking about all the mistakes that I made coming back to Kickstarter after taking a brief hiatus over COVID from publishing and having to relearn things and making some mistakes in how I had things set up and leaning on my friend Dave Kellett to help me through a couple of tough times. But that sucked. That really was terrible. I hated it, right? I hated making mistakes, but even the mistakes that I made, I were so easily corrected.
Yes.
So much more easily corrected than if the publisher that I had signed with made the mistakes, and I'm trying to correct that with no agency, no consent into how things are being run.
Right.
The mistakes that you make suck, but you can fix them so much more easily, exponentially easier than if you're signed with a publisher and you've got to put up with their mistakes. And again, go back to that heated rivals conversation for that. But we would be remiss if we didn't take a moment and say, this is not all roses. This is
absolutely
self-publishing is not all happiness and skipping down
easy
the dandelion.
decisions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it stinks. There are days. I was telling Dave yesterday. I caught a mistake that I had made in fulfilling, and thank goodness I caught it before the books went out. And it was a packaging mistake, right? And it meant that I caught the mistake at 2:00 and I worked until 5:30 that day, put everything off that I was planning on doing that day. All of that got thrown off the table, sometimes physically. And it was like, I've got to concentrate on making sure that this is right now and unraveling that problem. Days like I had yesterday, it sucks to be a self-publisher.
Right.
But it's still exponentially better than any of these people who have signed with this online publisher are dealing with today.
And in terms of revealing our own mistakes, I'll share one of mine. So in a recent Kickstarter, Beth and I, very often is the case, we weigh a package so that we know how much we're going to charge for the package to ship, right?
Yep.
So if it's 2 books, you take the cardboard, you put the 2 books on the scale, you go, okay, this weighs 4 pounds, 3 ounces, right? And then the other person types it in, and then we see what the postal rate would be, and then we enter it into a database, and this and that, bing, bang, boom. But there's a couple points along that process where we could either make a transcription error, make a spoken error, make a entry error, all that sort of thing, right? A copy paste error. So Beth and I have had problems in the past where we go to fulfill a certain tier of a reward, and we're like, oh no, we charged completely the wrong amount for this. We said it was $6 in shipping. It's going to cost us $10 in shipping for this tier. Oh crap! What can we do? Well, here's the thing. Morally, you can't do anything at that point. I said it was going to be $6. I have to charge $6. I've collected the money. Now I have to eat the $4. And I go, gosh darn it. And I look at that tier, and the grand total for the mistake that I made was $200. Oh no. Is that going to ruin me? No. But I'll tell you what would ruin me. Had I signed with this web publisher that we were talking about at the beginning of this, where if I had done a Drive Kickstarter with them, and then they took my money or screwed the pooch so badly, like they did for all these publishers, I'd be out $125,000 for that Kickstarter. Right. So Brad, you tell me which is more manageable, my $500 to $1,000 mistakes, or these $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 mistakes that these publishers and print publishers and web publishers can make when they screw you out of something. So I've said this before, that the mistakes that I make are painful, and no one will be madder at themselves than me when I make a mistake, but they are manageable size mistake. Like, oh no, did I accidentally miss a quarterly payment with the IRS because I forgot? Oh no, the fine was $300. Did someone not file my taxes for the last 3 years because they took my money and ran off? Oh no, that's a much bigger problem,
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at here is the mistakes that I make are trackable. To Brad's point, they're either to fix because I own them. They're right there in the studio with me. I can usually fix them the same day. They are manageably sized in cost. Usually they're $500 to $1,000 here, $500 to $1,000 there, rather than $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 mistakes, i.e. some of these web cartoonists that got screwed by this web publisher out of $40,000, $60,000 for their Kickstarters. So you get where Brad and I are going here, is that for lesson number 5, yes, it sucks. And yes, self-publishing is hard. And yes, you will 100% make mistakes. But what we're saying is, A, you will learn from those mistakes. You'll roll them into the next round of things that you do. You will get better. You're getting life experience that makes you a better person, a better cartoonist, more worldly, better understanding of the holistic thing. But I'll also say this, because Brad shared it with me yesterday, and I think this has value. The reason why Brad caught that mistake is because he is holistically involved in his business. He saw a name in what he was shipping out,
Yeah.
and said, I don't think you mind me sharing this, Brad.
Go ahead.
He saw a name as he was shipping it out, and he goes, that's weird. This person usually gets artist editions. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, I'm shipping this incorrectly. These are all supposed to be artist editions.
Yeah.
And it's only because he's holistically involved in his whole career and his whole process that he even caught that. No one at a publisher would know that Jim Wiggles often backs Brad for artist editions.
Yeah.
But Brad knows because of the continued support and the relationship that he's built with that person over years and years and years. And he might not know why, but it triggered enough of a memory to go, oh, wait a minute, I'm making a mistake. And he fixed it. Again, because he is holistically involved in all aspects of his business.
Yeah. And you cannot replace that. You just can't replace that. Anything that you learn as a self-publisher, you're going to take to the next stage of your life. And nobody's going to take that away from you. That's something you've earned.
No. And you'll see patterns. You'll see business planning. You'll see mistakes that could be made. Forewarned is forearmed. And Beth and I constantly say, okay, we could do this kind of a project. Oh, wait a minute. We did something similar 4 years ago, but remember this happened? Oh, that's true. Well, what if we handle it this way? Hey, that's a great lesson. Good job. We'll do it that way. That kind of thing. We have those conversations constantly based on life lessons learned from past mistakes.
Yeah. Here's the closing thought. Here's the bottom line, at least for me, with this whole conversation. And that is, the goal is not independence at all costs. That's not what we're saying here. We're not saying you've got to self-publish forever. We're not saying maintain your independence forever and at all costs. That nothing can be further from the truth. What we're saying is it's important to have informed consent in every business relationship. And the only way to truly have informed consent in a business relationship is to understand that business. Yep. And that's why we're saying crowdfunding is now, if you think that being a comic artist or a cartoonist is about drawing and writing and designing, you've only got the tip of the iceberg. It's also about merchandising and promotion and publishing and crowdfunding and all those other things that go into your whole business. It's important. I was at an NCS meeting or a get together a week ago, and somebody had said something where, Charles Schultz's name comes up, and somebody, was saying admiringly that he did everything he did with, and he didn't use any assistants, or maybe towards the end, he just had an assistant, because I think Paige was involved, particularly towards the end a lot. But he did everything he did without an assistant, this guy said. Mm-hmm. I said, bullshit. I didn't say this. I thought it. I wish I would have said it. But I was being on my best behavior. I said, no. I'm thinking to myself, no. He had an entire building of people behind him. He had people selling his stuff. He had people running the merchandise. He had a whole cadre full of assistants. But if you look at cartooning as just drawing and writing, you can say that, he didn't have any assistants, except he did. He had a building of people behind him. And that's why we need to rethink what it means to be a cartoonist today. It's more than just writing and art. It's being a business person. And if you reject that, if you can't go along with that, you are going to be the people we talk about in another
5 years from now.
Yes!
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be the subject of the next time we do. And by the way, we've done this show that we just got. We're 42 minutes into recording. We've done this show before. We've talked about this stuff.
And we will do it again.
We just found a new way to talk about it. We've got a new format, but we've done this show before. This is a rerun. This is old stuff. But unfortunately, we got to keep doing it because, God damn it, people keep falling for they keep stepping on the same landmine.
Yes. And 5 years from now, we're going to hear people going, who could have seen that Webtoons had the phrase perpetuity in their contract? I sure didn't. No one saw this coming. Boy, This is a first time in comics. No one saw this. I never saw about this contract that I signed that it had a duration of rights that seemed to imply perpetuity. Wait, this is interesting. I didn't fully understand the terms that I signed with this print publisher or web publisher or the the digital content ownership of how that would work. This is the first time this has ever happened with comics. And Brad and I will literally be screaming with our hair on fire as we run around the room going, it was 100 plus years of comics history. How did you not get a lawyer to sign? Look at this before you signed it. And it's always well-meaning, incredibly talented late 20-year-olds that are like, I'm jumping in. This is going to be great. There's no way this could go wrong. La, 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 la. Yeah. And Brad and I are like, God damn it. Own and control your own career.
Don't sign that contract. Don't sign that contract. Especially before you have a lawyer look at it. It's always a bad idea. Well, listen, Dave, in the time we have left, let's talk about something a little more optimistic and upbeat, because this is a bit of a downer for a topic. But let's talk about something that's a little bit more happy, because we're in the first part of the year, and it's the time of year when all of us are filling out award submissions. Right. I believe by the time this show goes out, it may be too late to submit for the NCS awards. But the Eisners are still out there. The Hugo Awards are out there. The Ringo Awards, my own favorite awards of all, they're out there. And
just out of curiosity, is there any NSFW awards anywhere for comics?
I was just thinking of you. Okay, so the short answer is I don't think so, because I think I would have figured it out. I think I would have known by now, because I think I would have
come across your transom. Yeah.
So not a major one that I'm aware of. However, there have been some NSFW comics that have won major awards. Like I think it was called Omaha the Cat Dancer won an Eisner Award.
Oh,
and it was quite NSFW. So
Brad, you need to start your own award system and call them the Bonies.
Oh my God! Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me with a good time.
And the winner of this year's Bonies goes to the Boner. Do you call it the Boner or the Bonies? What would you call it?
The Brad Guigar Pre-Memorial Award, I think.
Pre-Memorial Award.
Well, I'm not dead yet, so we call it the Brad Guigar Pre-Memorial Award.
Oh my God! But anyway,
they'll just end up calling it the Bonehead, and people know that it's the same thing. Yeah. So we did get this question come in from a Patreon backer who says, any recommendations on what to submit to the Rubens when imposter syndrome says to sit down and keep quiet?
Oh, yes. So first of all, congratulations on being at a point in your career where you are, there's at least a part of you that's feeling good enough that you're like, I should submit for these awards. That's a great thing. That means you've built up a certain body of work, especially in the last year, and you're ready to do it. That's great. Second of all, imposter syndrome. Boy, it comes for us all, no matter what stage of your career you're at. I'm going to tell you, the fact that it still hits Miyazaki from time to time gives me some solace that I'm not alone. You are not alone, question asker, in this. It happens to both Brad and I. And I will tell you some of the advice that my friend Brad Guigar gave me last week as we were talking about Anatomy of Dogs, because this is now the fourth book in my anatomy series. And for those that don't know it, it's basically one illustration paired with, what would you say, Brad, 7 to 10 jokes all around?
I would say like a dozen or so that float around the image. Yeah. Yeah.
And the sort of basic punchline for the joke is that it's somewhat like those high school biology books where it would point out, here's the thorax, here's the mandibulum, whatever it is. Yeah. And so, it's various arrows pointing to a different part of an author or a dinosaur or a dog or, this or that. Doesn't matter. So, but it is not sequential, and it's not panel by panel, and it's not formatted in a panel like even a single panel comic would be. So when I have submitted to past awards, I've been like, I don't know what to categorize this as. I mean, I think of it as a comic, but when I submitted it to the Eisner Awards, the Eisner judges got back to me and they're like, this is not a comic. And I was like, well, I'm a cartoonist. I have two master's degrees in comics. I would think it's a comic. Did you tell them that
about your two master's degrees?
I did, Brad. I always try to sprinkle it in because, by God, they don't do me any other lick of good in life.
I know you've got them. You've got them scanned into a Dropbox, and you can just link them. You've got that copy and paste.
I did that, if I just sent them to link to the scans of my degrees. Yeah. Anyway, so I was like, you know what, though? I was charitable about it at the moment. I was like, I can see why structurally someone might not consider this to be a comic. The way I came back to them was I sent them many Jules Pfeiffer cartoons that had a single character that had multiple word balloons pointing to the character. And I was like, how does this structurally differ and from being a comic, whereas this is not a comic, that kind of thing. And so anyway, the Eisners did consider it and didn't win, but that's fine. Yeah. But the point being, this year I said to Brad, what do I submit this as? This or this or this or this for the Rubens? And Brad said, and this was the greatest advice that I will give to our question asker, submit it for everything you think it could qualify for and let them say no. Don't pre-say no without submitting it. And that, I think, actually answers the question you're asking, which is, right now you're feeling imposter syndrome. I don't care. Submit it anyway. Let them tell you that you're not ready. Let them tell you that you're not award worthy. Don't you and your imposter syndrome keep you from submitting.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things. I've become quite in favor of award seasons and award ceremonies and stuff like that because
you've started winning. That's what.
I finally started getting nominated. It turned everything around. No, in all seriousness, I think I like the idea of submitting to an award like this for the same reason that the Powerball got up to above $1 billion not too long ago. And although I rarely buy lottery tickets, I had to buy a lottery ticket when it got that high. Just because I don't know how you
knew the math was in your favor.
Right,
yeah, you knew the math.
yeah. But you when you're holding that ticket, and I think this is somewhat universal. You think, oh, what would it be like if I actually won? And then you can have that little fantasy, and it's like, oh, that would be kind of cool. And you live that out, and then you got kind of a happy little glow for the rest of the day. And even if you don't win, it was nice. It was nice to think about what it would have been like. And then you go on, there's no reason to get upset that you didn't get nominated or you didn't win, because there's a whole passel of people that didn't get nominated and didn't win. Way more than did. So you can't really get that upset about it. No. But also, here's the other reason I think it's a good idea to submit your stuff to an award. And that's this. It's an opportunity, especially at the beginning of the year like this, to take everything that you did in 2025 and lay it out and look at it. And to really, maybe for the first time ever, judge yourself, because you've got to judge yourself before anybody can judge you. And say what was hidden and what was missing. And all of a sudden, if you're looking at all of your stuff in one big fell swoop, you can start to see maybe you've got this strength. This really hits still months later. And you can say, maybe I've got this weakness, or, I've got this thing that needs to be fixed. Every one of my comics, you could say, well, what if every one of your comics is a person cropped from the chest up, looking in the camera and talking, right? Yeah. If you see that over and over and over and over and over and over and over, that should tell you, hey, I need to learn to switch things up. I need to learn to put a little bit more thought into the visual framing of that punchline that I've written, right? Because if I keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's gonna become tedious to my audience. So I've got to think about a few times. I've got to draw a scene that's much more appropriate to what I'm writing. Is it before the action? Is it during the action? Is it after the action? There's a lot of stuff that comes into that. And these are the conversations that you have with yourself as you're judging which ones you want to put in. What was the very act of saying, what were my 8 strongest comics in 2025? That's an act of judging that you're just doing all by yourself. And it's beneficial. It's beneficial. It's okay to say, and by the way, I had the same conversation with myself where I said, hey, you're falling into some habits, Geiger. You keep doing this, you keep doing that. And here's where you might want to try to improve a little bit in 2026. If nothing else comes from that award nomination process where you're nominating your own work for an award, or the submission process, if nothing else happens, that is beneficial.
I wish everyone could have seen me as Brad was talking, because I was nodding my head so vigorously to everything that Brad was just saying, because we talk a lot on this show about how there's two tracks that improve slowly with your career. One is your editorial eye, one is your aesthetic eye. And everything benefits when you review your work at the end of a year for a comic submission. And I'll tell you what the benefit is. The comic that you're going to draw tomorrow benefits from you reviewing what you did in 2025 with an editorial eye and an aesthetic eye. Because you'll see, oh my God, 30% of the time I could have gotten rid of panel 1. 30% of the time, all right, I've got to tighten up my writing. Oh man, 50% of the time I'm doing talking heads from the waist up like Brad described. I really got to vary my camera angle. And for that, look for like a Michael Ramirez editorial cartoon. Look at how he switches up his camera angles. I don't agree with a lot of his politics, but by God, is he good about making his camera angles dynamic. And so Brad's right. It is real world training that benefits the cartoon you're going to make tomorrow morning when you review a year's worth of your comics from last year. So let's review. So number 1 is let them say no. Don't you say no. Number 2 is you have editorial and aesthetic reasons to review your work every year at the end of it. Number 3 is here's another real world benefit from you taking the time to review and submit your work for awards, is that in a world where you are going to be applying for freelance jobs or 40-hour-a-week jobs, or even down the line applying for more award shows, it is real-world practice that gets you better at succinctly describing your package, what you're able to produce to the world, who you are, how you present your work on a PDF page in a way that's pleasing and easy to read by judges. All of this is beneficial for your long-term career, both in comics and in the workforce, when you submit award shows.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Dave, you won an award right now for the best summation of a topic, because I got nothing that can even touch that. There's only one thing left for me to say. The award goes to Dave Kellett for best ending show comments. And
I won.
And the award for best transition, as always, goes to Brad Guigar, who says you've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
A little bit of self-dealing there. Your hosts have been my friend Brad Guigar, the editor of webcomics.com, the judge for the Bonies in the 2026 Bonies, and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the handsome co-host of the new drawing show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my close personal friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonists of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com, and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another handsome co-host of the drawing show at wrongwayshow.com, where we do fantastic videos along with our friend Kevin McShane.
And the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by the ever wonderful, ever whimsical Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, and we know that you do, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, where we are burning up the podcast chart.
And Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/Comic Lab. So I will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/own and control your work.
Oh, for the love of God. Please, please. I want you to know the transition that you didn't get, because at one point you said describe your package, and I saw the ability to link that back to the banana hammock story in the very beginning of the show and do a call back to the first 5 minutes of the show, and I laid off, and I want you to know that I did that because I love you.
I just wanted you to know that Brad didn't need to describe his package in his Rubens Award submissions package, because that YMCA, everybody knows. Brad dresses to the left, and he's happy to go through life.
It's the stuff of legend.
I don't even want to follow that up.